everybody, and welcome to the regular monthly board meeting of the Lake City Development Corporation Board of Directors for Wednesday, May 21st, 2014. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Rod, can you lead us today?
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that.
Sure.
Next item on the agenda is public comment. If we have anyone in the audience that's not scheduled to talk on one of our agenda items and would like to address us generally, now is the time. Seeing none, and welcome everybody. Next item is approval of minutes. We have two sets of minutes, the April 16th regular board meeting minutes and the April 22nd strategic planning session minutes. So let's just do one at a time. Let's do the April 16th board meeting minutes. I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve those minutes. Any comments, questions, or corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. April 22nd strategic planning session minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve those minutes. Any questions, comments, or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, that takes us to a special presentation, and in an effort as a part of our mission to engage with stakeholders in the community, we're lucky today to have with us Nick Smoot and Andy Huska, and they're going to talk to us a little bit about technology-related growth opportunities. Gentlemen, please join us at the table. Do remember we have some audience members, so when you're talking, your back's to them, so if you can speak loudly so they can hear you.
Will do.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Floor is yours.
Okay. We can do an overview, but I'm not sure if there were specific questions to address as well. There's a lot of activity that's transpired probably in the last few years in technology in the area, but in the last 6 months, especially trying to gather all the stakeholders on our part to put a focus.
I think an overview for us would be good, and then you'll probably get some questions when you've finished that.
Perfect. Perfect. I have built a few companies and grew up here and then moved away. And after I had sold off stakes and my ownership in two of those, I find myself between LA and coming back here now with children. And when I returned, one of the things I realized actually on New Year's this year, was out with my wife, and I saw a lot of, I would call them my peers, out in hooded sweatshirts and different things. Kind of had this scratching my head moment of where a lot of the young talent and wise tech pool and young entrepreneurs and executives, because being in Philadelphia and Los Angeles and San Francisco, I see a lot of them, and funny enough, I even run into friends I played AAU and Little League with from here that are running hedge funds and are in politics in Santa Barbara or in funds in Los Angeles. Actually, he was in a crosswalk. I saw a friend I played basketball with in high school, and it kind of caught me off guard. And I don't think Coeur d'Alene will ever be this mega metropolis, and I don't think it should be. But at the same time, I kind of had this realization there's a missing tech component, that there's not a focus on it, and especially in the startup world. There's good tech companies here that have been here for the long haul and used to be known for a lot of the keyboards. But there's a startup culture that's missing, especially in the tech sector. So I started trying to do my effort and have my office here in Coeur d'Alene, and ran into Cody Peterson and Andy, and this is Andy. They were moving in across the hall, and one day I walked over and said, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" And the response was, "Well, we're printing light." And I thought, well, that's fascinating. One of those companies that'll potentially turn into those unicorn companies. I don't know if you've heard that term before, but it's describing those massive potential companies. That's right here. So my thoughts have been basically around how do we get the resource pool to be aligned so that's attractive for startups to come here. And we were having lunch, actually, and I don't know, I'll definitely turn it over to you to maybe address some of the hang-ups that startups have, and then I'll fill in maybe how I've started addressing some of those might be a helpful thing.
Yes.
For tech startups, because this isn't your first either. I think this is your second tech startup, correct?
That's right, yeah. Cody Peterson and I, we are on our second startup. The first one was very successful, and when we exited from that first company, it was called Basinian, based over in Riverstone, we we didn't just sell that company to, a big Silicon Valley firm and get out of there. We got them to plant themselves in Coeur d'Alene, and now there's a living legacy of what we did there, of what two little Post Falls and Coeur d'Alene guys were able to do, and now ideally that company will continue to flourish and attract things. And now, as part of Rohini, we've got one under our belt, and so we kind of knew what we were doing, and we kind of had a few connections in the community, and so that was able to really kind of get us going a little bit quicker, right? But when we look back at the challenges that we faced as a young startup, there's a lot of barriers to entry for a couple of guys that have an idea and they want to try and vet it out, and they want to try and work it in the evening time, and then try and figure out how you can make that leap to something that's actually going to be successful, and how do you reduce the risks? And well, one of the big things I think from this talk here, Nick and I are both very focused on startups. I think I can speak for both of us when I say that the future of Coeur d'Alene tech is really going to be in startups. I mean, we can hope for a big transplant from a Micron or an HP, and those are the local big guys, and we could hope for anything to come out from the Valley or something like that. But really, those are going to be winning the lottery, right? What we really need to do is we need to value and encourage and vote for our local people, and find a way to remove those roadblocks that I was talking about, or that I was referring to. And so some of those roadblocks are pretty simple. It's like, where can I go do this? Where can I go get help to figure out what I need to do this? How can I get some space that isn't going to be a really long lease, that isn't going to have a $1,000 internet bill so I can do a cloud service thing? It's how do I even get insurance for my family and my 3 employees? It's some of the just basic things that most people don't even think about when they're putting together a business plan for a company. And I think what it comes down to is having a place for these young companies and young ideas to really be encouraged and incubated, and a place that's kind of a central hub where when you think about tech and you think about innovation, you think about these types of things, your mind is naturally drawn to this physical location in town where there's experience, there's talent, there's people who can help, there's a space that's available after hours, eventually for you to lease without being on some crazy leases and stuff like that. And when Cody and I met Nick, it was really a great synergy, because we've just been plowing through and making things happen and seeing that, okay, this is totally possible. And then Nick comes from this different perspective of saying, I'm starting to put the grassroots together where people can start having hope, or where people can start having this positive dissatisfaction, we call it, where it's like, I have an idea for something that I really want to change, but instead of just saying, oh man, it'll never happen, but I think I can make this happen, and if with a few tools I can do it. And so starting to see that the community is empowering the citizens with a place and with people and with resources, I think it'd be totally huge. And Nick can speak a lot more specifically about these types of things.
Yeah, some of the specifics that we put in place since early in probably October, November, we started trying to identify, like I said, the resources that make this place desirable for startups. It's low cost of living. It's beautiful. There's actually a decent airport. If you kind of go Minneapolis all the way down to maybe San Diego in an arc, it kind of covers those direct flights. You're hosed if it's New York, which I've experienced that multiple times this year, and so is my family when I'm stuck. But the airport's decent. There's a lot of I guess the capital here, financial and mental capital, is very rich. It's risk adverse. It's very traditional in its investment mentality. But I think if we can continue to showcase appropriate management of capital and successful exits on regional companies, or bring talent here that's successful management, I think it'll help mitigate some of that risk. And I even think we can lower the dollar amount for investment on early stage, much like an incubator like Techstars or Y Combinator. It takes away some of that fear up front. You can put in $50,000 for a few months of capital to get a company really going and see if it's viable before you go to the next step. So those are the things that I know we have: the beauty, capital, mental and financial, low cost of living, decent airport. Culturally, it's getting better. We still need to focus on that creative class, and I'll just continue to ring that bell. That's not so much my job. I view tech as it, but I do believe we need resources. I think this is a great tool. I think anything that's, wine bars, music, arts, just things that we should be stopping the bands on their way to Seattle and have them play a quick show here somewhere. So what I've done to pool those together, the missing piece we have, quite honestly, it's the tech talent. It's not here. I don't believe there'll be a lot of viable companies coming out of here in the first year or two. I do believe a lot of people could work for a lot of tech startups and start coming up and cultivating their own ideas. So we started these fireside chats underneath a brand called Innovation Collective, which I started. And the fireside chats gather successful entrepreneurs, executives, or inventors, and then we interview them once a month. It started out with me renting the White House and buying wine and beer for everybody. And then they would just have free wine and beer and listen to people who, one gentleman has done the first electronic trade in the stock market and runs a $300 and some odd $1 million hedge fund on the lake. Another gentleman, Bert Rattan, many of you are probably aware of Bert. These guys who are printing light have also pulled in, I think some of the other ones, just very brilliant people that have come here, and others that are willing to come as well from out of the area, but I'm trying to focus on the Coeur d'Alene area specifically to show that there's talent here that has succeeded, and it does another thing, and it helps me align with those people so we can become friends and start talking about what are we doing together to help become kind of a mentor board, which is what the next step has kind of become. I've put together an advisory board that's helping me. We've been meeting probably twice a month now, and that group, we've been identifying the educational need in the area for technology. I think it's a shame that in the state, computer software is still not a credit that goes towards graduation in high school. I think it's foolish for us to see that. I mean, what you look at the big companies doing big things in the world, and those that are getting the most notoriety. The year I saw Instagram sold for its billions, and then Prudential Real Estate sold almost in the same month. And Instagram swamped it, and it was almost embarrassing to look at that and realize, I mean, you guys are developers, you understand real estate, what a world difference that is, signs everywhere. And everybody I know that's in their 60s wants to figure out what's the next Instagram, and parents are trying to fund kids out of college to do whatever. So that board's helped. Our primary focus this next year, we did a big brainstorming session recently. We have over 50 events scheduled for next year, focused primarily on technology and startups. Our tech meetup that we do monthly now is, we've had it over 200 people already, which is great. It's hopefully soon to be one of the largest between Seattle and New York. Sounds funny, but I think we can pull that off next year easily. We do coffee and concepts now twice a month, which is early morning. Coffee and concepts, people come in with their early stage business ideas and just share what they're struggling with. And then the group then kind of says, hey, here's some ideas I have how you could address this HR issue or this legal issue. And if you're too embarrassed to share yourself, you email it in to the moderator. The moderator reads it out, so that way it's not saying, hey, I'm being sued. What do I do? If you don't want to be that person saying that, which if you've been in business long enough, you've been sued. I'm sure everybody here has. The other things we're doing, I have a conference scheduled this summer because with my advisory team, I realized we can't just say we're going to be about startups because, to be quite frank, we'll never be as good as other cities that are about startups. They're way ahead of us. But if we focus on specifically a specific area inside of startups at first, it'll get a stronghold, and we'll be able to make a name for ourselves there and attract others from the outside that think of it as a viable option to come to Coeur d'Alene. And so I started kind of dinking around with a Vista and NIC and PAC and all the other acronyms to figure out what's that space we should go after. Was it emergency medical technology? Is it leisure? Should we be the next Expedia and focus on travel or tourism? And we've kind of landed on robotics as the focus. And there's a reason for that in the area. There's multiple successful high school robotics teams. There's actually a great backbone of, as you probably know, manufacturing here, and it's not a far leap between manufacturing and robotics. And there's a very big revolution in robotics right now. It's gone from this sci-fi thing of the 60s everyone's talked about forever to now it's in 6 years everyone's saying we will have autonomous cars on the road. It's happening. I just sat in a panel with the head of autonomous cars at Ford, the gentleman who's doing all the policy for DC, the guy at Google who's over it, and then someone at Stanford, and they're all showing their different videos of how these cars are working, and it's mind-blowing. Google actually said, hey, if you guys could take on the challenge of figuring out how you can get these cars to drive in the snow, that'd be great up in Coeur d'Alene. I'm not ready for that, but those are the kind of problems that are out there, and they're asking us to do. So robotics was the focus, and I've started gathering that group. The first step is I'm trying to do we're doing a think tank August 14th on Sanders Beach. It'll be invitation only and specifically for industry experts in robotics to come here and wrestle with problems and pose questions that every city in the world should be asking of how to prepare for this robotics revolution, and then pose our ideas on what the answers should be. We'll release that report, and then my hope is that universities will tackle that for research and then deliver the reports each year, and then we can compile it and keep tackling next bleeding edge technologies. So far, there's some folks from UCLA's robotics lab where they're building robotics homes that are coming. We've got someone from Singularity, which I'm not sure if you know of that, but it's a Google and a bunch of other bleeding edge tech companies have created a university that's non-accredited because it's so far out there, but every CEO wants in it. It's pretty fascinating. It's Moffett Field. Their head of networking and computing will be here for that. An advisor to Google Card program, gentleman who's 35 years in teaching robotics from Tokyo City in Japan. He'll be also coming here to do a sabbatical in 2015 to work with the universities to set up a robotics educational track. And he also helped develop braces that keep the elderly from falling in the snow in Japan. And he helps to work on some rehab technologies here. And I've been trying to get Kootenai Health involved with that. Going to do a one-day conference on the back end of that think tank, where hopefully it'll be at NIC. Working on that right now with them, but it'll be on the 15th, and we'll have the guy from Google, the gentleman from the robotic home piece, and some startups pitch, and then we'll either have a capstone. We have some politicians I'm talking to nationally that are in D.C., as well as some figureheads of some of the best-known corporations that are on their boards. I want them to come in and they have a legacy and talk about building a legacy for our city around robotics. And
actually, if I may take a few more minutes, Nick's talking about robots and manufacturing being related. I would say that Spokane and Coeur d'Alene has always been known for building something that you can hold in your hand. Whether it be keyboards and control panels up the street, whether it's boxes, whether it's aluminum, whether it's a tree, a stick that comes out of a tree. I think we would be doing ourselves a disservice if we told ourselves that we want to be nothing but software people. If we just want everybody to write apps, it's not in the DNA of the area yet, and eventually we're going to get there. But the way I see it is, if we take little ideas like this, focused ideas, and we take advantage of the talent that's here, the young engineers that are coming out of the universities, and the one or two people that want to come back here, and they create these ideas, they can be made here. I would absolutely say that for the two startup companies that we've created, if it wasn't for the talent in the Coeur d'Alene and Spokane Valley area when it comes to machining, molding, creating anything, we would not have been successful. And those same people are going to be what really enable this type of stuff to happen.
Yeah.
And then as these little gadgets that you can hold in your hand grow into massive systems, that's when it's going to naturally pull in the software talent. And that's when the universities are going to start saying, okay, we're really seeing a pull here, and so we need to put computer science in Coeur d'Alene and that type of stuff. So while we definitely need to have the big vision there, let's not forget our roots and what we're good at around here.
Yeah.
And I don't know how we can really, cheerlead for these little companies that are spread all over that a lot of people have never heard of, but they do fantastic work. I don't know if we can put together, some way of making them more visible, making the skills that are here more approachable from these guys that have startup ideas. But if we can start creating some synergy, if we can start taking all of these nuggets and spinning it into something incredible, then I think it's a great win, and it's not a force fit either. Anytime you're trying to force something, you're not doing it right. Our motto is that it's easy to make something simple complex, but it's difficult to make something complex simple. And we've pulled that tagline along in all of our companies because it's totally true. And it's simple to just take these great people and start doing stuff. And so if there's a center, maybe it's the land that's over on Celtice at the old Atlas Mill. If we started with a destination I think we need a destination for technologists, for futurists to want to descend and want to be there and want to be, when you get there, you just want to be creative. Our Pacinian building over in Riverstone was awesome. Whenever we had people come from the Bay Area, they said, I don't want to leave, because it was on the pond. It was modern industrial. Now our new office across the street in the Parkside building is incredible. You walk in and it's an art gallery. You can't not invent something standing in the middle of our office. I invite any of you to come by the way. It's fantastic. And so I don't want...
They have lasers there too.
Yeah, we have lasers.
It's kind of fun.
I don't want, an alcove on Sherman where, somebody, gets a bargain. I want a place that the people can come, the young engineers, they can spin off of Esterline or whatever, and they can come down and be like, man, this is my place. This is how we're going to do it. This is where I'm going to invent. And then when the visitors come from Microsoft and they come from Intel and they come from Apple, they're like, wow, these guys know what they're doing. I'm moving to Coeur d'Alene. I'm going to post up and.
And I think that's one of the biggest areas where we could seek help, I think, with LCDC, is that right now we've got soon to be one of the largest tech meetups, which sounds ridiculous, in Coeur d'Alene out of Seattle to New York. We've recently seen probably 10-plus companies started here, and I know of about 6 patents submitted since we've been started. We're working with Marty and Barb, who are doing the maker space, the gizmo space. We have people who want to rent office space from us, so we're trying to do a co-working space. We've got multiple tenants who are willing to sign 5-year leases. And we want a home. And so we've been looking for that and figuring out where is our home. And we've got keys to certain buildings, and we're walking around and bringing in engineers and trying to figure out numbers and making them work on our side. Where we feel comfortable with the numbers, and then we'll bump into something where it's plumbing potentially from $100,000 to $500,000, which is a great range. Lord knows what they're going to find in there, sewer rats. But for us, it needs to be a place where we've kind of described it as like an innovation alley.
Innovation avenue,
avenue,
not alley.
Yeah, alley, avenue. A place where we can have these fireside chats, a TEDx event. We can host the conference. Tech companies are around each other, and there's a just natural synergy. I even heard you say when you came in, I just lost my best guy. I got promoted. I look forward to a competitive nature here where people are hiring away tech talent back and forth because that promotes promotion, better income. We're never going to sign an Eric Schmidt contract, jobs contract like that, where it keeps the competition low. I want to see it high here. Because I do believe that we have, I don't only believe it, I know it. There are people who are born here and leave here and make $150,000, $200,000 a year in their 20s and 30s. And I think it's very possible for them to make a little bit less here, do the same brilliant things, and have a better lifestyle. So the tech center would be one. And I know it's primarily around buildings and city infrastructure with LCDC that I know, but I know you're also involved in other circles. The other piece that we're working towards is a venture capital fund. We've already started kind of getting soft commitments from people outside of the area and starting to try and align locally as well. We have a mentor board we're putting together. We're getting ready to launch a website that will cover our local experts, kind of our incubator style, our calendar, everything we do.
What will how will you label your website? What name?
Currently, it's innovatecda.com. And I'm trying to buy Innovation Collective. I'm haggling with the guy. If you're listening, I want it. I would like Innovation Collective because I think what we're doing is a decent model. To be quite frank, I'm borrowing, and stealing from Brad Feld, who's done a very similar thing in Boulder, Colorado, and it's kind of become a national movement. I've met him in L.A. and just fell in love with what they did there and think it makes sense for a place like here. Granted, they have Denver close by, but we'll find our way around those little problems. We'll always have our own, but we've got better upsides. So Innovate CDA for now.
Okay.
How big of a footprint are you looking at for space?
For square footage?
Yes.
To start, it could be probably 10 to 15 and house a few of the projects. Ideally, we have interest, from those 3 companies, like I said, as well as the makerspace is interested in, getting involved with that as well. Co-working space.
And for those of you that haven't heard that, the makerspace is in Midtown.
Correct.
It's
And
relatively small, isn't it?
pardon?
It's pretty small.
It is. Ideally, I mean, 20,000 plus would be great.
Yeah.
And that's what we've been kind of looking at. And
Yeah, the makerspace needs to be bigger. The makerspace needs to be planted right in the middle of Innovation Alley, because those are the people that are going to be taking advantage of this makerspace. Just like making fiber optic internet available to all these new guys, making a machine shop available to all these new guys is a fantastic idea.
Yep.
And 20,000 square feet, starting off as a central hub, and growing out, on spokes of a wheel out to, fantastic buildings that house companies that have graduated, companies that are dying to be in Coeur d'Alene.
you've probably seen McKinstry over in Spokane. If you haven't, it's just a really beautiful kind of warehouse that's been converted into a similar space. We envisioned something like that, not that grandiose, but it can't be, I'll just say this, if we want to do this right, it cannot be something that's half-hearted. In a similar fashion, I think this park is a great example of something that's been done perfect. I think, some of the dirt's still there. I mean, it'll be grass soon, and then it'll be definitely perfect. But as it stands right now, and I work here and I'm watching the activity and the use of it, it's the right decision for the city. In the same capacity, this needs to be the right decision for the city so that in 20 years from now, we have a vibrant young tech scene here, and that we're producing millionaires under the age of 30 that are not inheriting the money from mom and dad, but they're making income that comes back into the city. And we're even discussing doing a trust, kind of where entrepreneurs, when they start their company, immediately lock away 1% of your company into it. That's just standard habit here. It's very doable. There's brilliant people, like I said, lots of capital. But I think the biggest thing will be finding that space. And I will say, I refuse to be out in the middle of Post Falls. I refuse to be out in the prairie. I will do, and if that's the offers I get from people, that's fine. Go figure somebody else out and fail with them. I'm not here to fail. I will do it right. If it takes time, I will do it the right way, and I'll do it on my own. I'd rather help. I've said this before to other people, too. I want help. I bit the elephant, and then everyone's like, what do we do now? I've got to help this kid. So I'm going to eat it, and if I get sat on, I might and break a few limbs, but that's okay. I'd rather help and do it the right way, which to me, it's either to start downtown Coeur d'Alene. It's not a secret. There's probably one building we all are thinking of that I've addressed, and we have been walking through. But if not that one, then somewhere in the Riverstone space area. It makes sense because it's got that cultural component in both, that it's accessible to the 90 and it's the right spot. So those are I think the main things to help with.
Yeah, I think just like Nick, by faith and stubbornness, I will not fail. And the perfect place is along the river. I mean, we want it to be a showcase. You can put high-end homes over there, and it's going to be fixed income. We want to put beautiful businesses there, flourishing businesses that have unlimited earning potential. And we can definitely do it if we all put our heads
There's some
together.
sharp ideas. I kid you not, the other day a kid was talking about a new thing. He found a way to print basically a very strong 3D printed material. Could work like a Kevlar almost. And he's like, I can't figure out how to use it. And he's running through all these ideas. He's like, I mean, you could even like scan bodies and print off the armor. It's like thin like paper. It'd work. I was like, stop. That's a DOD contract potential. You've got it. Like, go. And these are people here that are young engineers. He gets up early, works on boats, and he's just got this idea. He's got patents on it. Doesn't know where to go. Can't find funding.
Yeah.
Can't find mentors. But he found us, and so now we've been giving him mentors, moving him towards funding, connecting with the right people, removing all the barriers, and it's about a community. I'm building the community. Our community needs a home.
That's right.
And that's
Where I
where
want my
our
kids to
next
be.
piece is. And I'm blessed to build a community with guys like them. I mean, it's been fun working with them. We have too much fun. That's the best part. It really is family. It's becoming something where, you got your crazy uncle and aunt occasionally involved, and then the other ones you like. You get all sorts of kinds of people involved in these things. But the best part I've seen so far is it's companies being founded, capital being sought, patents being submitted, real things happening and real steps. And morale, I think, is a big thing as well. Lots of people believe they can do it now, which is great.
Yeah. So let's keep pushing it.
Good information. Other questions?
I have one, Mr.
Brad.
Chairman. How important is higher education figuring into all this?
Yeah.
We hear the philosophical debate
Yep.
about, well, NIC just needs to stick to the basics and have blue-collar tech school and that sort of thing. We don't need 4-year schools here and all that. So how does that fit into your vision,
think
what we need to do to bring these millionaires in here of the future?
I think higher ed matters. I don't think it's the only way, but I think it matters I'm working closely with Charles Buck. I would like, I'll just say it, I'd like to remove the software program out of Moscow and move it up here.
Is that possible?
Sure. Why not? Anything's possible.
Okay.
Just have to show the right demand and show why we're a better home for it. And I think it takes years and takes time. But that comes down to our specific focus. And I do think it matters, though, for a few things. One, it recruits young talent just to a specific location where they're just there. And then it's a better fishing pond for the mentors and other people to pull them into other things. And they also will do research that they play with and then don't know how to take it to market. And then that's where you can build a great collaborative relationship together. I don't think it's as important to build idea people and entrepreneurs with the drive. I think
It does come naturally.
I think those are not made in college. Those are educated in college. They have corners knocked off somewhat in college, and some of them are crushed in college. So there's a much heated debate around that, even with guys like Peter Thiel, who's pulling kids out of Stanford and paying them $1 million to leave and then go build companies for them. And these kids are leaving and succeeding. So do I want higher ed here? Absolutely. I'd love to see North Idaho's campus thrive and be a hotbed for computer science and entrepreneurship and their EMBA succeed and all the things they're working on.
Yeah, kids need the tools. And I really think that there's a different mentality between the people that who know they're going for a 2-year certificate in diesel mechanics and the kids who are going to be computer scientists. They might not have any clue what it means to be a computer scientist, but they're going to know that because they're getting these tools, I mean, they're just going to assume that they can do an Instagram or a Twitter, right? And if you go out for electrical engineering, you just expect that you'll make the next iPhone. And so we need that mental shift.
Is there any handicap to being in the state of Idaho?
Yeah.
I don't mean that sarcastically,
No.
but sometimes I wonder.
There is. I mean, there's a handicap and there's a benefit. I'm a fan of you can skin the cat a million ways. Mm-hmm. So that's just what we're going to focus on.
I think every area has its drawbacks.
Yeah.
The kids that think they want to go to Silicon Valley, they don't realize they're going to get just hammered for 5 years and they're going to be completely burnt out.
Yeah.
They might be, loaded, but they also might have a $2,000 a month rent bill that they can't really get ahead on either. And so all the pluses and minuses considered, just like Nick, I've had multiple opportunities to leave, and look where I'm at.
Yeah,
There's people who want to be here.
I think the handicaps can be worked around, some of them.
Totally.
Even the new 30-10 model thing, I think, to recruit companies here. I might be saying it wrong.
2030.
Pardon?
2030.
No, actually, is it 20? No, I apologize. It's the new model to incent companies to move here to get back 30% of their taxation.
Right.
Oh,
State Department of Commerce.
Yes. I think that's great. It really doesn't do much for startups.
Right.
I mean, in a 10-year window, occasionally you'll see one that grows to, a monster in 10 years, but that's not going to be much here. I think we'll be building bullets for the armies. I'd like to create companies that end up getting bought by the bigger guys. So there are handicaps, but I also think beautiful. I can get from my home to my office in 7 minutes. I can walk around Tubbs Hill while I take conference calls. Kind of sucks if you're in a big tower looking down on the bay all day long. I've been there.
I've heard tech people from the Silicon Valley talk about Spokane becoming a hotbed because it has several universities and kind of has all the ingredients. So how does that compare to here?
I think
What the potential is and what we can do?
I think it's helpful. I think when I address the Boulder-Denver model, I think it's very similar, and I've thought that through. I've spent some time with the guys in Spokane. I do think we have a chance to be a better startup community than them because we're more of a community than Spokane. I like Spokane, but it's definitely more of a struggling metropolis trying to become something bigger, which is good for Spokane. It'll draw talent, and I think we can work with those universities. But I think if I lived in Spokane and I was ready to start a company and take the next step, and I could move across the border and have much cheaper rent and live on the lake or somewhere nearby and have more fun, and if we have more of a tech family here and a tech corridor that's specific, I think it's a big win.
Yeah, and I spend a lot of time outside of the area. When people think about Spokane and you tell them about Coeur d'Alene, I know that we think of them as very different things, being not terribly spatially separated. I think outside of the area, people don't really consider this, 700,000 people, two different communities. And we come across as much more attractive than Spokane.
I think it's aesthetically for sure. And we've got to work with them. I think and that's a key piece, working with Spokane.
Yeah, they have a lot of talent.
From a tech capacity, not so much, I think, any sister cities need to be wise in how they operate together, but I think in the same capacity from a tech community. And we're doing that right now. I judged Spokane Startup Weekend and great ideas coming out of there. And then quickly those companies came over here for some mentorship and ideas, and they met with other people over there. That's what I'd like to keep seeing.
Yeah. Nick, you used the term positive dissatisfaction.
Yeah.
That piqued my interest. It's very refreshing for me to hear you guys talking about the optimism. I mean, you're full of optimism on what goes on. A lot of time when people talk about the area and the potential, they're more of a negative aspect of what's going on.
Yep.
And thank you very much for coming and sharing. I've been kind of disconnected with what you all are talking about. I spent 6 years at Moffett Field back when it was an air station.
Yeah.
And now I find out that it's,
Singularity.
been encompassed by the Silicon Valley and their utilization down there. But you guys keep telling your story. I mean, my God,
Thanks.
keep preaching.
Do it.
Because
Tell it with us.
Yeah.
I think that's a clear pathway to helping create the environment that you all are thriving to be a part of, and I think that's neat. Now, is it alley or avenue?
We want.
Avenue.
I think it should be Avenue. Alley has
Because you're
other
still debating it,
connotations.
'cause you even called it alley.
I call it
He
out.
called it Alley.
Okay.
I really don't care. It comes back to the cat thing.
Yeah.
Just call it. Give it.
As long as there's innovation on the sign, you
Call
can
it
put
shoe
it
for all I
it can
care.
be
We'll make
innovation
the
court,
culture whatever we
innovation
want.
loop.
Okay, but thank you.
Mick?
One of the things that we came out of our retreat, which we had last month, was to start looking at a jobs committee, collectively to start looking at this area and seeing what is necessary to start bringing, creation here. And we're going to have our first meeting here next week, so we're just infancy stages.
Great.
But I think these are the kinds of things we'd like to continue to work with you guys on.
Excellent.
We understand that jobs are different today than what they were 10 years, 15, 20 years ago. The things that, like you were saying, this area is very much known for its hands-on type of things.
Yeah.
That world is changing so rapidly, and, it's to the point now that people can live where they want to live and work where they want to work. And I think, we need to be able to figure out ways that we can work with you guys and others to make that transition.
Yeah.
And, some of it's going to be is the technology here, is the infrastructure here, and what can we do to start helping you maybe find that space that you're looking for.
Great.
That's where I think we can make a huge difference.
I agree.
And I think that's where we can, work together and come up with some great ideas. So
Appreciate that.
I look forward to
Fantastic.
working with you.
Yeah, keep in touch with us.
Yeah.
We will.
Thank you very much for sharing
Yeah.
Thanks
your
for having
experience
us.
with us.
Thank you.
Can I ask
And-
one other question, Mr. Chairman?
One more, Brad.
Okay.
Then we got to get on to
I understand that. Here, I was the one that said this could be a short meeting.
Sorry.
So I agree with what you said. We can always hope, but we can't just sit here waiting for a big electronic assembly plant to come here like Dell Computer or Micron. But out of curiosity, a lot of people have talked about Twin Falls, and I don't want to overplay Twin Falls or anything, but what would bring something like a Dell Computer to Twin Falls? Nothing against Twin Falls. But what do those places look for?
I don't know. I know, from what I know, there's been kind of a history there already of some of the tech.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of incentives they're giving them. I know there's HP's been there in that kind of region as well for a while. So there's a pool of people that exist. When you make let's do a 10,000 person layoff, it's pretty small in a large corporation. But when you chop that off and it comes out of that area, there's a bunch of free people
Yep.
to be scooped up. So I'm not sure.
I can speak
Just
to that
curious.
a little bit more. I think what attracts, all tax incentives and all that sort of aside, HP and Micron exist because Simplot wanted to take a risk, right? And he knew that the future was not completely potatoes, and he made more money in electronics than he made in potatoes. We would love to have something like that happen up here. We're printing light. Would we love to have an LED wafer fab on the Rasmussen Prairie, employing 4,000 people and bringing in train loads of sand and shipping millions and billions of dollars worth of electronic components out the other side?
Yep.
Absolutely. Do I have the money to put up a $150 million fab? Not yet. But if we can tell the story and we can, get the right partnerships, even in Idaho with Micron, or, On Semi is over in Pocatello, they have fabs over there. We could, it doesn't have to be in Idaho, but it's a great story to tell, right?
Should
And
be. It should be in Idaho, and it should be here. And those are the things we can't lose to other places.
yeah, and if Tesla can put a battery plant in Phoenix, and if they can put something in Idaho Falls, what's in Idaho Falls? It's not pretty in Idaho Falls. They can certainly do it out here, and we've got tons of water for cooling giant equipment. We've got cheap power, so we can build anything affordably. We have talent from Kaiser and all these other people who build stuff, who can come in and they can operate these pieces of equipment. Even if they can't invent a piece of equipment, we don't need people who can invent. There's enough.
Yeah.
And they're coming out of the woodwork, and there are going to be more. But it takes thousands of laborers and thousands of machine operators. It doesn't take tons of inventors. So if we can put the story together, if we can build a plant like that, it would totally change the world out here. And I think more and more of the investors, at least the investors that have helped our companies, they've been kind of getting the tech bug. One of our investors has done tons and tons of real estate, and now he loves to brag to everybody that he's on his second tech company, and this is the future. And so if we can just keep that going, then it's going to work out.
And hopefully we'll recruit them at some point. But I will say we'll stay in touch with you guys about the next steps in the building. It's something we're moving on quickly, and we'd like to see something in the next few months around a decision of a direction for us, and so we'd like to work with you guys on that. Thank you.
Be happy to talk to you some more. Thanks,
All right.
gentlemen.
Thanks for your
everybody.
time, guys.
Thanks for your time.
Appreciate it.
All right. Next item, committee reports. Finance Committee, Commissioner Caldwell.
Okay. On the Finance Committee, if we could go to the Lake District first, and we'll go to the balance sheet. For the month, we did have an increase of cash of $48,024. We had a bit of a Washington Trust Bank bond reserve interest of $137 was earned on that account. Liability side is where there's the most significant items. You'll see that our liabilities increased significantly. We had a normal pay down of debt of roughly $16,700, but we increased the debt as we took a draw from our bank bond of $732,000 to fund a lot of the expenses that we paid last month on McEwen Park. So the net increase of our payables is $715,226. If you go to the profit and loss statement, again for the Lake District, you will see that we had tax increment revenue from the county of $81,543. We had rent income of $13,715. A couple miscellaneous things, add all those up, and it's $95,595. If you go down a few spaces, that's where you'll see the large McEwen Park line item payment, which was the 13th invoice from CNI. That's $731,677. The rest of the items are pretty normal for our business, with the one exception is we did pay repairs and maintenance on some work that we had to do on our property at 213 North 4th Street, and that was $1,741. Everything else is normal for the month. But again, it's the McEwen Park is where the activity has been. Go to the River District next. We'll start with the balance sheet on the River District. The River District had an increase in cash, much smaller than the Lake District, but they did have an increase in cash of $12,612. If you go to the profit and loss for the River District, that's where you'll see the tax increment funding that we did receive of $22,564. We had a bit of interest income, $214, for a total of $22,778. All other expenses basically are 50% share that we have with the Lake District on various costs, so nothing significant beyond
what came in as far as money. The expenses were fairly typical. So really, if you look at the two districts, the significant action for sure is continuing to be in the Lake District. And when we get to the payables, I'll show you kind of where we're at on that. Any questions on either the balance sheet or the profit and loss for either district? Seeing none, we will go to the accounts payable. I think Tony just passed out the update. If you start at the top on the accounts payable, $129.50 for Elam and Burke on legal issues. Holly Troxel services for the month, $1,323. Our government relations with Molitor and Associates Consulting, $2,560.23. The Panhandle Area Council bill of $1,500, and that was for the Atlas Mill site eligibility study, which is something we have to do early on in a project. The next item is Washington Trust Bank, and this is a payoff on the property we own at 515 Garden Avenue. We've had that financed for quite a while, and then the loan has matured, so we're recommending that we write a check to pay that off. We did budget for it, so members know that that wasn't our budget, that we need to do that this year. That's $209,405.
I wonder if we shouldn't clarify, it's 515 West Garden Avenue. There's a reason for that.
That's where you live.
I live at East Gardens.
Very good point.
It would be very nice if you paid off my mortgages.
Well, probably can't really do that.
That's a good idea.
I don't think it's a good idea.
If you would clarify, I would appreciate
I'll
it.
clarify that to be West Garden Avenue.
Yeah.
How's that? 515 West Garden Avenue,
Yes.
$209,405.35. The River District financial modeling that we've had done so far, $3,051.25. And then the large item, which is invoice number 14 from CNI on the McEwen project, $632,841.75. If you add everything up for the month, it's significant, $850,811.08. That's the total on the payables. You can look on the right-hand side of the sheet. It shows you how much we have left to pay. As you recall, we had committed $15,624,800 to the project, and we're getting very close to having spent all of our money. I expect next month we will spend the rest of our money, and then the city will start spending some of theirs. Is that a fair statement, Tony? Okay. So we're just about done, but I do need a motion to approve the financials. Are there any questions on the payables, though, before we do that? Seeing none, I need a motion for approval of both the financials and the payables.
Motion to approve financials and payable.
Second. Seconded. Any questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Well, okay, Housing Committee, Commissioner Goodlander.
Yes, we are moving forward with the housing committee, our group down in Boise. Idaho Housing is moving forward with the Midtown project. There have been some revisions to the plan. There's been an addition of a small park on the front corner of Roosevelt, I believe, and 4th Street, which I think is going to add a lot, very nice aesthetically, and add some energy to that area. As far as I know, and I know Tony probably can give you a better report because he said he's been on the phone today talking to them, so maybe I'll ask him to kind of update us with what he's got and received today.
Sure. There's been some more interest expressed with our Midtown stakeholders, and as Commissioner Goodlander mentioned, the new concept has a pocket park. It's about 1,600 square feet proposed on the corner of Roosevelt and 4th Street. Basically, the design folks have just kind of moved the project north a little bit, creating this pocket park. And we would potentially lose, a few parking spaces if that were to materialize. So that is the latest iteration that's come through this process, and that was derived from the stakeholder meetings. People thought it'd be nice to have some type of public space up there in Midtown. So listening to the input, this was the kind of latest design conceptual right now. So as Commissioner Goodlander mentioned, the housing company is still moving forward. with their process of shooting for a September application deadline for the federal tax credits.
You did a fine job, Tony. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, Scott?
Mr. Chairman, is there any place we could view that, a conceptual design on that with the pocket park included, or?
I will share it. I've been working with the city on trying to make that a public overture, working with the press, and we haven't gotten to that point yet, but I'll send that around.
Thank you, sir.
Other questions of Deanna or Tony?
On this pocket park concept, would that be owned and maintained by the city parks department? So that would be public space?
Turned over to the city.
Dedicated public space, okay.
And I have talked with the, city parks department on that before we got too far down the road. If this were gifted, this property were gifted to the city, would they agree to long-term management? They'd be happy to do that. And they'll help us with the design, how much should be hardscape versus softscape up there, what type of park should it be, what kind of elements should be in it. So that's all kind of still in the conceptual design if this takes root.
And there's still some parking issues that need to be worked out with the design team.
Correct.
That maybe can add some more spaces back. But overall, I think it's going to be a wonderful concept for Midtown, and it will get us started up there, and we'll no longer have a vacant lot up there. Get some energy into our Midtown, as Nick Smoot was talking about. That's where their Maker's Place is in Midtown, so this will only add to the values there.
Okay, other questions? Thank you for that report, Deanna. Okay, Parking Committee, Commissioner Jordan.
Nothing new to report on parking, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
We have a meeting coming up on June 3rd.
Other than we're soon to have a number of new spaces available under Front Street,
That's a given.
Front Avenue. All right.
Brad, just maybe clarify for the people who are viewing, a lot of people have asked, do they get some free parking in that parking structure that's underground next to McEwen? Do you know the answer to that?
I'll find out on June 3rd. 'Cause there's been negotiations on the parking contract and how that's going to be managed.
I did ask, and they said, at least for the first year, they're going to keep the 2 hours free.
Okay, I'd heard the same thing. I was just curious how that's going to play out.
I've heard about the 2 hours free. I thought you meant free.
Oh, no, I'm just talking about somebody wants to come down and use the park for a while.
Right.
So the 2 hours.
I think one of the new wrinkles, though, is they need to go to one of the kiosks and actually print a ticket, have it in the dash area of their car, which indicates that they in fact logged in as to when they started their parking 2 hour free down there. So
Yeah, okay.
that's a little different than some of the other parking lots I think we've got around town.
So you need a parking ticket in it to get one going in to get out, right?
Correct.
Yeah, it's kind of a high tech like in the bigger cities.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
And we were told today, 3 kiosks by
Yeah.
the grand opening? Okay.
Okay, next committee would be Communications.
Thanks,
Mr.
Mr.
Patrick.
Chair. Just kind of a continuation of a couple of initiatives that we've been working on. We did put out a newsletter without Keith. We did highlight Keith in the newsletter. I wonder if you all have seen that, but I think it went to press yesterday.
It got distributed.
Kudos to Tony for putting that together.
Let me share kudos with Therese Taylor for helping with that. She was very helpful.
Very helpful. The other item in regards to replacing Keith and the strategy, Tony and I met with the range leadership discussing a couple of ideas and concepts that they are proposing. Interesting meeting. They have modified their thought process. They were involved with some projects they wanted to kind of clear up first, and now I think they're going to charge full speed ahead and get back to us. So the Communications Committee will be meeting with the range folks again to entertain possible strategy for this point forward. The other thing, didn't really have to do too much with communication, but I'll partner with Tony is during his report we'll talk about the Four Corners BLM process of selection and interview that's been completed last week. So that's all I got, Mr. Chair.
Question, Rod.
Dave, one question for you. As we were walking through McEwen Park today, and they were telling us a lot of different things about the park and what it took and all those things, either through communications or some other venue, I think we need to have something put out there that explains to people various aspects of the park some of the real details on the water that takes care of the splash pads, the size of the pump, a lot of different things that we learned today. And I talked to Dick about that. He thought that's a good idea. I just don't know who's going to do it. But there's so many unique things about the park that if there was a fact sheet or a way to communicate that in pieces through our communications.
That's a good idea, Rod, and it probably is long-term going to fall under the halo of the Parks Department. I know they've got brochures that kind of highlights the other community parks we have, but I could envision it being something along the McEwen story, something like that tells you facts. Like I think Dean was conveying today that there's over 1 million pavers in this park. Now, that's kind of a big number. So those kind of facts and figures, also the amount of water it takes to irrigate that thing a day. I mean, all those kind of facts that were kind of just thrown about by these guys today would be interesting facts to include with part of a Here It Is brochure. So I'll work with Greenwood and see what kind of energy his office has. They want to dust up and come up with a brochure, but he might come back looking for a little bit of communication money to help with that process. So
It's quite a story if
we'll
we
get
could
the
just
story
tell
out
it.
there.
It's like the city might be willing to let loose their new communications director.
There you go. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
Good suggestion.
Thanks, Dave.
Okay, Deanna.
I'd just like to tag onto that a little bit, because I think it's extremely valuable for people to really understand all of the underpinnings of the park. You know, people may or may not realize that we're irrigating out of the lake. They may or may not realizing that we're reserving water from the splash pad and using that for irrigation. All the different types of processes that are in place that actually save the taxpayers money and save the community money, and yet provide this beautiful amenity. I think that sometimes you get very technically involved if you're in it every day, and you don't realize how really valuable that information would be to the general public. So I think that would be a very positive thing to maybe not only work with Greenwood, but with Keith and get a really solid informational piece out so people really understand how that works.
I know, Deanna, to kind of tag on what you're saying, that they've got technology at the other parks that computer-wise monitors the operation of the irrigation systems and reports back. The Parks Department has a designated tech that monitors the electronic computerization of the irrigation systems. And it'll tell them, you know, what's been working, what has a sprinkler head broken. I mean, it gives those kind of alerts that, so you don't have the people, you know, seeing a 20-foot geyser going on. And I think that the thing about these garbage receptacles that are solar powered and automatically phone when they need to be emptied, I think that's kind of a neat technology that's part of this project too. So I agree, all those things are kind of cool technology that we've embraced to try to save money and put a best product forward on this park that's going to be very, very heavily used.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions of Dave? Thanks for that report.
Sure.
And thanks for your involvement in getting Mr. Smoot and Mr. Huska here today. That was very informative. Okay, Jobs Committee, Commissioner Arman.
Well, the Jobs Committee has been formed. And we're going to have our maiden meeting next week. So we're initially going to kick off the concept of the Jobs Committee next week. It was interesting having these two gentlemen here today to start thinking about jobs in North Idaho and Kootenai County and Coeur d'Alene specifically. But I think when we start looking at this region, we have yet to tap all the potential that's even out there. I mean, once you just start getting an inventory of what could possibly be, and I think, you know, it's going to be interesting as we sit down as a committee and start doing an inventory and start doing some research on where we can go with this. I think it's going to be mind-boggling what we could possibly come up with, and I think there's oftentimes a lot of free-floating ideas out there that's looking for some group to come in and start to organize those ideas, and maybe that's going to be our mission, is to, you know, be somewhat of a clearinghouse. So whatever it's going to be, we'll figure it out as time goes on. We're going to probably evolve as time goes on, but I'm looking forward to working with the other commissioners to come up with some concepts and report back each month.
Good deal. Yeah, I think this whole idea of inviting stakeholders and having this platform for discussions like we had today may not yield an immediate result right today, but you never know who's watching that on TV and what kind of connections get made, and things ultimately happen.
And I think one of the things is we report back, there is that two-way communication with, particularly even broadcast, where others will be able to see it, and if they have questions or concerns or want to have input or whatever, we've got a great resource in Tony to work back through us that way too.
Right. Okay. Executive Director's report. Tony.
Mr. Chairman, a few items. First, I'd like to talk about the McEwen Park dedication ceremony coming up this weekend, and I pass this around. I think I emailed this to you, but just so everybody knows, and for the viewing audience, that this Saturday, May 24th at 11 a.m., McEwen Park will be dedicated in a ceremony that will begin at the grand staircase on the west part of the park. The ceremony will probably last anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, and then after that there will be free food and entertainment provided by the Coeur d'Alene Downtown Association in the new pavilion. Our own Mr. Davis will have some remarks during the ceremony, and as well as Mayor Widmeyer, former Mayor Sandy Bloom, Dean Hagenson, Dale Hatch, Doug Eastwood, and Bill Greenwood. And Mr. Kennedy will have also some input on thanking a lot of the stakeholders, or all the stakeholders that have been involved in this multi-year effort. So once again, this Saturday, 11 a.m. in the park.
Public is invited and encouraged to attend. I think the weather should be good.
Splash pads will be functioning.
We're told the splash pads will be fired up. So I told the youngster that just on the way back from the tour today.
We were told today all the fences are going to be down. So
Yes.
There will be some fresh seated areas that they'll ask the public to not venture out onto, but hopefully the public will respect that as they have in the past, and it should be a fantastic day. Then followed by Sunday, I believe the Coeur d'Alene Marathon is going to stage
Correct.
out of the park. So
Yeah.
it's already, you build it, they will come, and it's going to start getting used pretty heavily on the whole park.
The second issue, Mr. Chairman, is just an update on the Atlas Mill site feasibility study. I had the opportunity to visit with the Kootenai County Board of Commissioners today, just to take forward the eligibility report that this board approved. As you recall, the next step is to get county support and city council support for this eligibility report. Everybody on the same page, and that this site is eligible for urban renewal treatment. We had a very good meeting this morning with the Board of County Commissioners. One of the county attorneys that was there had a few issues with the interpretation of the Idaho State Code regarding certain facets of this that I could not address, so we left the meeting with Mike and engage our Ms. Quaid to help the county attorney kind of work some of the interpretation issues on the statute. So we'll go back to the county again with that interaction, and we'll keep moving this process forward.
Okay. Questions on the Atlas Mill site eligibility study? Okay.
The next item I have is in partnership with Mr. Patzer here, the Four Corner Master Plan Initiative is moving forward. You probably read about it in our newsletter, the update. The Welch-Comer team has been selected as the recommended team that will go to City Council for approval. And Dave was part of that selection committee along with Mayor Widmeyer, Scott Cranston, who's the City of Coeur d'Alene Parks and Rec Commission Chairman, Steve Anthony, who's the Director of Recreation for the City of Coeur d'Alene, and Bill Greenwood, who's the City of Coeur d'Alene Parks Director. Mr. Painter.
As I said at the Parks and Rec meeting on Monday night, I was amazed. The three respondents that we interviewed, Vertus, Welch-Comer, and Landmark JUB, were all local talent, tremendous presentations. I told that group last week when we interviewed them that I wish we could kind of make an all-star team out of all. I mean, they all had their strengths that I thought was really neat, and the fact that they put a lot of energy into these reports back to us, these requests for qualifications and project examples, and their 1 hour presentation to our group. Unfortunately, you've got to narrow it down to one. I think the committee strongly felt that we could really select any one of the three and not go wrong. It just was a matter of some of the, what I call the incidentals part of what's going on that made the difference. The voting was extremely close, the rating of them, and it wasn't a unanimous choice for Welsh Comer. That's how close it was, very competitive, and like I told them, I was very, very impressed and thankful for the local talent that we do have. And when you start looking at the projects that these people have been involved with over the years, it's pretty impressive. You know, not just in our particular town, but really around the western United States. So I think we're going to be great. I don't know what the ask is going to be of this group yet, but it'll be something.
So the process, Dave, if I'm correct, it went to Parks and Rec, and then it goes to General Services.
General Services.
General Services will then make a recommendation to City Council. City Council will then officially theoretically choose Welch Comer, and then direct staff to come back to this organization for...
Yeah, well, City Council will make a recommendation, correct me if I'm wrong, Deanna, with your expertise, to enter in a contract with the selected firm, and then the negotiations begin. And they'll come to us, the city will come to us then with a formal ask for what it's going to take to fund this initiative as per the contract that they negotiate. So we'll know shortly.
And as you recall, this board moved that we would agree to 75% of the negotiated amount for this master planning initiative.
Up to a certain dollar amount.
The cap.
Right, the cap.
Correct.
So that will be occurring, I would guess, probably before the month of June is over, certainly. And I think the completion date on this is October. Towards the end of October is the deliverable. Now that may be paused a little bit, but it'll be a busy summer. And there was some real concerns about trying to engage the public during the summer months, but firms came out and said, there are certain windows in which people will be responsive and are in the area. Historically, we've found that to be true, so they seem to have a pretty workable solution with meeting those timelines.
Great.
And my final item, Mr. Chairman, is I bring forward to you the Molitor and Associates Government Relations Contract Renewal. I sent this contract out to you for your reading pleasure and background. And basically, the only modification to this year's annual contract is an increase in compensation from $20,000 a year to $22,000 a year. The $20,000 compensation amount's been in place since 2007. It has not changed over the years, and as we all know, the cost of doing business has risen over these past years. And Ms. Molitor has made an overture to increase the annual compensation. So we are proposing $22,000 versus $20,000 for the 2015 contract period.
Just to comment there, obviously urban renewal continues to be a topic of conversation at the state legislature. Don't anticipate that to change anytime soon. And, each of the state agencies have personnel, on site charged with responsibility of providing information and communication to our legislators. And so we run pretty leanly up here. We can't send Tony to Boise for 3 months, so we need to have people up there that are knowledgeable about what we do. So when those questions come up, whatever policies are made are based upon facts. So I would encourage your approval of this contract.
I move we approve it.
Second.
Moving second to approve. Deanna?
I'll second it.
Oh, you were?
You're
I
seconding?
was going to do it, but
I thought you might have
he
a
spoke
comment.
first, so either way,
Okay.
it works fine.
Questions or
Teresa does
comments?
a good job.
Questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Tony. Commissioner comments? Anybody feel the urge to make a comment?
I'll make one quick comment, Mr. Chairman. I think what we heard from these gentlemen here today, we heard debate about how much this town should invest in parks and cultural facilities and so forth. And I think that's, you're hearing from the people, the innovators, and bringing the jobs of the future. The community we're building here and the quality of the community we're building means something in bringing jobs here.
Exhibit A. Other comments? Good comment. Exhibit A. All right, public comment. Any comment from the public? No comment from the public, so that takes us to adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.